back to another episode here on the From the Farmer podcast. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about a question that I've heard before. Are chickens worth it? Is it worth, think about all this going into it. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of getting backyard chickens and answering the question, is it worth it to get a backyard flock? So keeping a small flock of chickens in your backyard has many benefits. From supplying you with fresh, healthy eggs from well-cared-for animals to giving you great fertilizer for your garden. There are a couple pros and cons when it comes to getting these animals. So let's cover those today. So let's go over cons first. There's a lot of different, minor cons, like we've talked about them before in past episodes. You could have regulations about keeping them if you're in a town area. Like I said, we've gone over this before, so I'm just going to breeze through them. Maybe you live in a more urban area and chickens can be loud. So, taking all these things into consideration, maybe chickens are too loud or too smelly for your area. Doing that research beforehand and taking all those into consideration before. But today we're going to be talking about one big con that I think it gets hit, like a lot of people really think about it. And that one con is cost. And, cost is a huge thing. Whenever you're getting into chickens, it's like, what is this going to cost me? So it's not cheap to raise chickens. In fact, it's more expensive to raise backyard chickens than purchasing eggs at the store. Chickens cost between $3 to $30 a chick, depending on the breed. So whatever breed you get, dependent upon that. The cost of coop varies. You could build one right from things you have from your backyard, or you could spend a couple hundred, maybe $1,000 on a really extravagant chicken coop, like it's all upon your preference. Chickens will not get enough food in your backyard alone. So you do have to have that supplemental food just to add on top of it. And that can add, feed for a month could be around $15 a month for just a bag of feed, depending upon what you feed. Maybe you do like we do, we feed organically. So that costs a little bit more. So, taking all these things into consideration, and then whatever else you need in upkeep and maintenance, $10 to $20 extra, there's a bunch of different things, a bunch of different cost concepts, but I'm going to have Zachary go into a little bit more depth and break it down for you.
Yes. Okay. I'll go over that and then I will do what we do. And this is based on what feed I get and things like that, the prices that I saw. So chicken scratch is around $17 if you're getting organic feed. It can be more expensive. I think just a little bit more than $20.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure, I'm not entirely positive, but layer feed is around $20. I've seen some that are a little bit higher. I've seen some that are at $20 exactly.
Right. It all depends on what you want to feed and how you want to feed them. Research ahead of time.
Yes, and I'm going to go over just the cost quickly and then go over like more in
detail.
Okay. Coops, like you said, anywhere from, if you're building it, to very cheap, where you might just have to pay for screws and a little bit of fencing to patch up holes, or you could spend $150 on a coop, or more than $500. We've talked about coops in a previous episode that we'll have linked below or at the end, and we'll probably just link the whole playlist at the end.
Yeah.
But that was something that I did cover extensively before, and that's either from $150 to $500, but it can be more expensive than that, just depending on what you want. Fencing, I don't really have a set price on that because it depends on what you're getting. Some things, there's like plastic fencing, which is fine. I've had that before. Metal fencing, just different things.
Maybe you don't want to fence your birds in at all. Maybe you want to completely free range. So right there, you could be paying for something or you could not. So.
Exactly. And feeders are $10 to $30, and those vary on size and on where you get them from. What's wrong? Why are you laughing?
Your chickens sound like an amazing choir back there.
They are. They're going crazy.
They're like
But
all harmonizing together. Sorry, it just brought me a little bit of joy right there.
but feeders are $10 to $30, and those are on size and place, and also the material what they're made out of. I have 2 metal ones, and then I have 1 plastic one, which both are all 3 of those have their advantages. The waters are around $30. I was looking at those the other day because I was going to invest in another one.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided not to just because I have enough right now. It's just a pain in the butt with the one that I have. But that's fine. And then chick food is anything that you feed them before laying age. Most of the time, or people will tell you, feed layer or feed chick feed all the way from when they're first hatched up until they lay their first egg, and then right when you see that first egg, you switch to a layer feed. And though a bag of chick feed is $22 a bag, at least what I get. I get the Do More chick starter grower,
Mm-hmm.
50-pound bag, and that's $22 where I am. And also the eggs, which this kind of goes in with the chick food. You're paying all of this before you get eggs.
Yeah.
Unless you already are, unless
So
you're
it's
building stuff, whatever. So you
right.
are spending quite a bit of money. And baby food is, or chick food is for the first 6 months.
Right. This is the initial cost. This is what you're going to have to pay at first. Now, over time, you could be making that back. We'll talk about the pros at the end, but like, just keep that in mind. There is an initial cost at first. You know, coops are probably going to cost you the most. Coops in general, because unless you're getting it for free. I mean, what we tried to do is try to get all the, you know, stuff that we could and make a coop as DIY as possible. But you know, if you want to make a really nice one, think about that ahead of time. Think about, well, what is this going to be good for me in the long run? Because like we've talked about before with coops, our first coop was not as good as I'd have liked my coop that I have now. Like there's just a difference, but I've learned through the process that, you know, from that experience, like I hated cleaning out that chicken coop. I've learned the better setup for cleaning out my new chicken coop. So, you know, keeping that in mind and building a first coop that's going to last for a long time. And, you know, there is an initial cost at first.
Yeah. And it's trial and error too. Bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And those first eggs that you're getting, or even for the first couple months of eggs that you're getting, those are going to be like $150 eggs.
Right.
For that, you're not going to sell them for $150, but
it's going to take a while till you make that back.
Yeah, very much so. But I'm going to go through the rest of my stuff. All in all, chickens will likely never pay for themselves unless they weren't eating a lot of feed.
It is true.
And they're getting kitchen scraps. You might want them to.
It is true.
And if you're selling chicks, like if you have a rare breed that you are breeding extensively and things like that, then you might quickly make your money back. Or you may never, with shipping costs and everything. I haven't really dived that much into that though.
Right.
But
so it is hard with that. Like chickens don't really make you back like that money unless you have a really good plan. So we have a video on permaculture plans and the best way to use what you have and not letting things go to waste. I'll link it at the end along with our chicken keeping playlist. But if you want to check that out, go for it. It's a great video. But there is, with that, you know, keeping that in mind, if you want to make back that money, which we all do, I think everybody's main point of getting chickens is to be self-sufficient. So to make that back, it's coming up with the best plan. So taking the manure and instead of just tossing it out, using it as fertilizer for your garden. So, you know, take that into consideration if you do intend to make that money back, you know, finding the best permaculture plan for you and making it work.
And sometimes you're not even making that money back. Sometimes it's just as simple as you're just breaking even, maybe. And sometimes it's all you can do. With scratch, we talked about that a minute ago, but you don't need to feed it, but you can if you want to. I'll go after layer feed. It's more of a treat and not recommended to feed exclusively. And then you also have the question, are you feeding organic scratch or not organic? If you are feeding organic feed, I would go ahead and go to organic scratch.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not feeding one or the other that's organic, I would just cut it out and stop doing the organic, just because it's not really, you're paying more for it not to be organic,
Right.
which that's a whole other debate. But layer feed, you don't have to feed layer feed, but to get the most eggs that you can get without messing with the lighting
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, you might want to feed that. Also, with the other thing I did talk about, organic or non-organic, that's just personal preference. Also, with my feed, we mix layer feed, scratch, wild bird seed, and sunflower seeds all together. So we're having
Mm-hmm.
4 different feeds all mixed up, and that lasts us. It it varies greatly depending on everything. I mean, right now because they are in their run, we can like cut the grass once a week, let it get tall or whatever, and then all of that can go to them, and that's an entire day that they really don't need anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we're getting fruits and vegetables that I'm giving them, things like that, it's just balancing out. And we did talk about coops, just being resourceful, using what you have, and the cost can go down greatly. I mean, if you're only buying nails and zip ties and a little
Right.
bit of fencing, then that cost is going to be, I mean, practically nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Fencing, if you can find fencing that has been used, or if you want to buy new fencing, either way, used fencing has its disadvantages for sure, because you don't know what it was used for. You don't know what was sprayed on it, if anything at all. But that's also something you need to look for. Forgot where I was. But that is also up to you on either way that you want to do things. If we bought a lot of ours, no, I take that back. A lot of our first fencing came from a family friend. They had
Mm-hmm.
already finished everything, and they gave us all of their fencing. We did have to buy very little fencing, but it still worked. Everything, I mean, it works so
Right.
much better. Feeders, you don't need a feeder. I know people I know people who just throw it out in the yard. I throw mine out in the run because my feeder, it's one feeder. I think it's like a 5-pound feeder,
Right.
and not all my birds can eat from that. And so I do throw some out in the ground. Some of them will go in and eat, and it's just personal preference. I don't want anybody fighting over anything.
There's a little thing with that too, though. If you're thinking about cost, a feeder might be better. If you're just throwing your food on the ground, your chickens may not pick all of that up. So right there, you're wasting food. So you're going through more food by just scattering it on the ground. So keep that in mind as well. This really does go along with, like I said, our permaculture video. It's making it efficient and, what's going to be best cost wise, because like I said, I think the main idea for getting backyard chickens is self-sufficiency and having it off your property and just making it cost efficient, and just keep that, just something I was thinking of right there. Continue.
Yes. Also, and I am actually adding another feeder this winter, or whenever I can buy one. But also, how many feeders do you want? How many birds are you feeding? Or how many birds are going to be able to go to those feeders? Are you going to be going on trips? Because maybe you want to have more feeders available for them if you are going on a long trip.
Yep.
That works really well. Same thing with, well, I'll get into that. But if you're going on a long trip, like I'm leaving tomorrow night when we're filming this, I'm filling up my feeder. It's going to be gone by the next night. So my sister is going to be here to fill it up, but it's a little bit less that she has to do.
But if she wasn't here, if you had extra feeders and just laid them all out, it would take them longer to go through. So like exactly. That's the way we think about it. I try to. Now, granted, my grandfather, Guppy, if you're watching, love you. He takes care of our birds while we're gone. So I tried to make it as efficient for him as possible, so I try to fill up as many waterers as I can so he doesn't have to take care of it. I filled the feeder all the way so he doesn't have to take care of it. So keeping those things in mind, if you are going on a trip and you don't have somebody to take care of their food and water, getting a really big water and a really big feeder that you could just fill to the brim and it'll take them longer to go through is a good idea. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but it's going to be worth it so you can actually go places.
Yeah. And with that, you also need to take into consideration, like I have ducks in with my chickens, filling up like a trough water is not going to, it's not going to work, because the ducks there'd be no water left. The ducks are crazy. I don't so much mind them drinking the water after the ducks have been in it to a point. Like if it gets bad, no, but for a day or two, it's fine if you're going, but ducks will fling water everywhere. They don't, and that's what I have to deal with. But my waters beforehand, before I had my ducks in there, I could do them every 3 days, maybe, and they were fine. I'd fill them all the way up, and then 3 days I'd give them a clean, fill them back up, and then they were fine. But with the ducks, I cannot do that anymore. But let's get more on waters. You can be simple, or you can get really, really fancy with it. You can do extravagant pipe work and everything else if you really want to get all fancy, but they don't need it. They're typically expensive, and when you are going to invest in water, look at your climate. We've talked about this before. You want a water that's going to be easy to clean and easy to get off when it's cold outside. You don't want something to where it's going to freeze and you won't be able to get the ice out. You won't be able to get water in. They won't be able to peck at it, things like that. Also, talking to people who are in your area and seeing what they suggest is a big thing, because they've been keeping chickens for a long time, I'm assuming, or at least through a winter, and you really get a good idea that first winter. Are you the same thing before? Are you going on trips? How many birds? How many waters do you want per bird? Sometimes that's not obtainable. Like right now I probably have 10 or 12 birds per water, and I have 3 waters. And that's they're not exclusively staying on that one water going around, but average, that's probably what mine is. And that works every single day. Now, if you can clean them out every day, highly recommend, because stuff does build up, algae, things like that. It's never recommended to go longer, but as long as it's not hot, then you can draw it out a little bit, but not too long, and make sure that it's not bad. Like if it gets bad, take note of that and do it sooner. Almost sorry y'all. Chick feed is a necessity if you want them to grow right, whether medicated or non-medicated, that's up to you. I heard somebody tell me that when you're getting birds shipped to you, you want to use medicated at least through the first bag, and then you can switch to anything else. Are you getting organic chick food? We talked about that. Do you have just chicks eating it, or are there other animals? Like, do you have ducklings eating it, or turkeys eating it, and things like that? That all needs to be considered. With mine, like how many bags of chick food? We probably go through 5 bags of chick food in a month right now, because I have meat birds that are eating it. I have ones that I'm keeping eating it. I have ducks that aren't old enough to lay yet. And that's like a bag every week, depending on, and so depending on things, that's your cost right there. But like if you're doing meat birds like I am, you want them growing right, and it's a starter grower, so it works pretty well. But like this winter, or into the fall and winter, I'm cutting back. I'm not cutting back what I'm feeding, but the meat birds won't be here anymore, so that's going to be their cost gone. And the feed's going to go a lot farther than it would had they still been here. And that's something else that you need to think of. If you're getting into winter and you're spending a lot of money and you aren't going to be getting a lot of eggs, maybe you want to downsize your flock, or think about downsizing your flock. But that's all up to you. I'm not telling you how to raise your birds. Sorry,
Right.
Reagan, that was a lot of me talking.
No. I wanted you to go into detail on that because I think a lot of people, their first initial concern is how much is it going to cost? And is it going to be, the whole point of this video is it worth it to get chickens? So the biggest con, and we've talked about a lot of pros and cons and different things about chickens in past videos. So we've never really gone into detail about cost. So I really just wanted to make that a point in this episode.
Yes. And with my, sorry, I did want to do this. I'm feeding all of my birds the scratch, the layer feed, the wild bird seed, and the sunflowers. We get all of that mixed together. The layer feed is 20, scratch is like 17. The wild bird seeds 21, and the sunflower seeds is $30 a bag, but we split that up into like 3 different weeks just because it's a lot of sunflower seeds and they really don't eat them crazy anyways. But all of that gets mixed together, and that's a decent amount of money just going into feed, and they eat it. It takes a week and a half for them to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like 100, probably like 150 pounds, maybe a little bit less, give or take. And that's what my birds go through.
And how many birds do you have?
I don't know.
He has a lot. So that's another thing. Zachary has...
Don't go in over your head either.
Exactly. Whenever you have a first flock, you're probably only getting 4 or 6 hens.
Yes.
So, you're not going to be spending that much on food. Like I said, your first initial is going to be your coop, I think. It's like the most expensive part, unless you get a really expensive chicken, unless you get a real expensive breed. I mean, that's up to you.
There are some that are really expensive. I think I've seen some that are like 150 a chick.
It's not worth it, y'all.
I would never do that. Even if I really want the breed, I wouldn't do it.
Save your money and put it into something else. But let's get into the pros. There's a lot of pros when it comes to getting chickens, but I mean, we've covered it all in past episodes, so we're only going over a couple today. But I think the biggest pro for getting chickens is your food quality. You know where your food is coming from. Most times we are buying our foods not fully knowing where it comes from or how it was raised. Backyard chickens are a great way to raise your own food the way you like. Free-range eggs are much healthier than eggs from a production facility. Chickens in your backyard are getting bugs, while most production birds are strictly fed grain. So being able to...
And I'll let you finish, then I'll go.
Okay.
You're good. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
You're fine. So being able to make their own diet and take care of them properly gives you the assurance that what you are eating is actually good. And that's a huge thing for us because I think the biggest reason why we went and got backyard chickens is because we wanted to know where our food was coming from. When you're buying from the store, when you're getting eggs, when you're getting meat, we don't usually, fully know what the setting that they're in looks like. And they're not fed, the right things, the nutrients that they need that's going to benefit them and make them, healthy for you to eat. So that was a huge part of us getting backyard chickens, is that 1, self-sufficient mindset, and 2 is the quality of our food just became so much better.
Yes. And I could not agree more with all of that. The other thing, and then I'll stop. The next thing is birds are omnivores. They eat greens and they eat meat. I mean, if they come across a nest of rabbits, they're going to eat the rabbit. That's what they're going to do. If you have ducks that are swimming in a creek or a pond and there are fish or baby turtles, you're going to eat them. All birds will eat. I mean, they'll eat anything, but some things are more going after the nutrient dense things, which are the bugs, the grubs, and the maybe it's a little bird that fell out of a nest or something. Sad, but they're omnivores. They don't just eat greens or grain like we think. And that's usually what the production facilities are like, is They're just eating the grain. They want to max out production and get the most out of every bird.
Right.
And that's not how a lot of people who are homesteading and things like that, that's not how a lot of us think.
Right.
Just trying to get the most out of every bird. We want the bird to live a long and happy life above all else before production even comes into play.
Yep. So there's a couple other pros. Like we said, compost at the very beginning. You know, it's using the manure and using it to its most. Or some entertainment in your backyard. Just throw a piece of food in the yard, and I swear it's a backyard football game. It's the most exciting thing to watch. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
You aren't wrong. I've seen birds pick up a whole tomato, like one of the big slicer tomatoes, and just run with it.
Yep. It's entertaining. But I think the most of all, the biggest pro is chickens are educational. Having a backyard flock can teach you a lot of things. It's taught me a lot of things. From responsibility of taking care of an animal to learning about how your food is made. Chickens are a great beginner farm animal. The gateway to, you know, farming and agriculture. And I definitely recommend it to anyone who is interested in raising their own food and, you know, knowing where it comes from. So chickens are a great first animal, and it teaches you a lot along the way.
And even if you just want to teach like your kids or something, or you want to be taught like how life is from the very beginning, that's a great way. I just had ducklings hatch out. All of that's on my channel, but the ducklings
linked below. I have it all linked below. Go check it out. Subscribe.
The ducklings hatched out, and that I've had really never seen ducklings hatch out before. And it's so neat just to see that entire process. Same thing with chicks. I've seen that process, and it's seeing, because when you're getting them from the store, you're getting them when they're chick, like they've already been born for 2 or 3 days. But when you're getting them like that, you get to see them emerge from the shell. You get to see them when they're still wet with everything, and then you see them fully dry out and fluff up. And then if you have a hen who's raising them like my ducklings are being raised, then you get to see that special connection that's formed instantly. They were talking while they were still in the eggs. They were cheeping back and forth to each other. So they already knew everything before they came out into the world. And it's just so fun to watch and to experience all of that. Highly recommend getting chicks or ducks and anything.
Yep, it's a great first animal. The experience is phenomenal. At first, it's a little rough. The first couple years, it's like, oh, what the heck is this? But then once you really learn it and you're able to really like understand it, the process, it's incredible. Like I said, recommend it to anyone.
Exactly. And a lot of times it's really just trying to get things efficient. Those first few years, you are not going to have things in the most efficient way that they could get that they can get at all. I mean, maybe you do. If you do, power to you. But most of the time you're figuring it out, and sometimes it'll take 2 or 3 years or longer, just depending on what you're doing, or if you're adding new birds to the area, or just if you're looking to see where your flock's going to go. If you want to raise only heritage breeds or things like that, we have videos on that. Y'all can go watch them. We're not going to dive into that right now, but it's just figuring things out.
But yeah, I think that's everything for today's episode. We hope that this helped you out, going over all the pros and cons, and you know, maybe it helped you finalize your decision of getting chickens. Maybe we were the ones who inspired you to get chickens in the first place. I mean, if we were, you're welcome.
And tag us on Instagram. We want to see the little fluff balls.
Exactly.
Or
tag us.
The adult birds too.
We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. If you have any questions for us, leave them in the comments below. If you have a friend who wants to get chickens, share this video too. It'll be their research. We're here for you guys. We want to help you learn all things from the farmyard. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.